Hey you guys, this is Maya Zahira with Psychic Protection Sanctuary, and we are now starting our monthly Facebook Live. Now I want to warn you ahead of time, I feel like I'm going to start having a coughing fit. I don't have a cold, I just ate something really spicy and I'm going to cough right now. So the unfortunate thing about it being a Facebook Live is that, you know, you just have to keep on going. So here we are. Now, we are live in our Psychic Protection Sanctuary Facebook group. And we used to have these Facebook Lives every week. And this year we've switched to once a month for a while. That's what I can fit into my schedule. So I'm really happy to be able to offer this for you all. I do notice that when I only do it once a month, we have way fewer people joining live, but that's okay. Whoever joins, joins, and this this free class will be uploaded to YouTube afterwards, so people will have a chance to watch it. It'll be up there for a very long time in the future. So excuse me while I cough. Sorry about that. And it is, what month is it? We're in middle of February, near the end of February. It's winter time and it's cold and it's that coughing time of year. So we do have a few people joining us. Zahira from Renton, Washington, and I think we have somebody else, so go ahead and say hi. And those of you who follow my Facebook Lives, you know that it's all about keeping it real. So if there's a cough or just like a sneeze or whatever, we just keep it right on going. And I see Jane. Jane is here with us. So hello. Good to see all of you joining. So let me think if I have any announcements. I've got our lesson for today. Let me go ahead and give you the topic of what we're going to be talking about. Excuse me. And then we will go into a couple of announcements. So our topic for today is all about negative OCD thought loops caused by psychic attack. So again, that's negative OCD thought loops caused by psychic attack. So you may or may not even know what the heck that means, but I'm going to explain it to you. You might be able to relate to feeling like you have negative thought patterns that happen and they seem to kind of come out of the blue. So that could be an indicator that you are experiencing this phenomenon. So just a couple of quick announcements. I have two Facebook groups. There's this one, Psychic Protection Sanctuary, which is all about psychic attack and psychic protection. Excuse me. And we go into some pretty, you know, somewhat intense topics in this group. It does tend to be beginner to intermediate oriented. We don't get into the advanced stuff in this group. But we do cover so much here and on my YouTube channel, which is also called Psychic Protection Sanctuary, that you know, for those of you who are new, you'll have plenty to look at and absorb. And then for those of you who are wanting something more advanced, then you'll want to look at my Psychic Protection Mentorship Program. It's a 6-month program. And at the time of doing this Facebook Live, I have to think of what month it is, February 2019, my calendar's over there. We are now enrolling for the next 6-month course, and for this course, we only have a little window where we're opening. It's not open all the time. So the 6-month course starts next month in March. So if you're interested, go to psychicprotectionsanctuary.com and then click on the Psychic Protection Mentorship. You have to look around for it in the menu. So the one Facebook group is this one that we're doing the Facebook Live on, the Psychic Protection Sanctuary. And then the other Facebook group, the other free Facebook group is Spiritual Empowerment. I have to think for a second. Spiritual Empowerment Community. And that's also a free group. It's all about spiritual empowerment, how to strengthen your energy, and how to live your life on purpose, live the life that you want, and to stop being so disempowered. And so you can see how the two topics tie together: psychic protection issues, and then, you know, really being at a level of personal empowerment. And a lot of people have issues with both, which is why I created both groups. So Spiritual Empowerment Community with Maya Zahira, that's the other free group. So if you want something, it's like the energy is a lot softer. We don't go into the really intense stuff. It's more about lifestyle and becoming a more empowered person overall. And so that, for those of you who are new, that's a little intro. That's how you can get more free access to me. And, you know, it's a great way to connect with the community. So we've got those two free groups, plus the the YouTube channel, Psychic Protection Sanctuary. So there's a lot of free stuff. Okay. And then there's the paid programs. You can find those on my website, psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. Okay. So that's all the logistics information. Like, we get that out of the way first, because we've got some cool and really fascinating information to go over. And I like to just go over all that other info first for those of you who watch this or listen to this and you're like, oh my God, okay, so I need more. I need more support. So there's those Facebook groups. And then also, for those of you who are new, just to point out that the free Facebook groups, again, tend to be beginner oriented, maybe a bit of intermediate, and then the paid programs are where we go like super deep. And I'm sure that makes sense to why I would do it that way. So we've got Jane. Oh, you guys, remember to tell us where you're joining from. So I need to make a note, you know, like I make crock pot soup for my work week, and I've just figured out, last night this happened as well. I've been eating leftovers from what I made a couple days ago, and if I have red pepper in whatever I eat, I end up, and then I have my dinner break right before I do this, and then I end up like clearing my throat and coughing the entire time. So sorry about that. And those of you who have followed me for a while, you know I just like keeping it real and being weird Maya, right? Erica says, you are glowing. Well, that's good. I've had a lot of shifts recently, and so that could be part of it. Thank you. And I also sat outside. We had a little bit of sun in this winter weather. And I sat outside for 15 minutes and meditated, and I had my winter hat on and my coat. It was really cold. So got a little bit of a suntan. It was just to get the energy, not for a suntan though. But it makes you feel good when you sit in the sun in the middle of the winter. Elaine, yes. Elaine says hello. Very good to connect with you, dear. Jeannie is, so we've got some regulars here and a couple who are brand new, so welcome to all. Jeannie says, hi Maya, almost forgot, joining from Piper, Kansas. Jane is joining from Brooklyn, New York. Nancy, hello from Buffalo, New York. Erica, joining from Burlingame, Kansas. And Sahela says, I love your weirdness. Yes, soul sister. Yeah, excuse me. Oh my God, that was bad. Yes. So, you know, I think like my spirit guides or whatever, they are like, yeah, we want to make weird stuff happen while the video is on so that people will know that this is like a normal, real person who's teaching this. Or maybe I'm not so normal. Maybe I'm weird. This is a real person who's teaching this. This is not some like lofty, I'm not going to mince words, like pretend guru who's like pretending to be all almighty holy and they're really not. Like, I'm just real. I've been through my own psychic attacks. That is what brought me to this work. And I've been a spiritual teacher for over 25 years, actually. I was doing spiritual teaching work even when I was a teenager, and I'm not even counting the 25 years. When I say 25 years, that doesn't include the work that I did when I was a teen, leading groups. So I've been doing this for a long time, but my own experiences with spiritual warfare are what brought me to specifically this work regarding psychic protection. And I went through something really intense about 3 years ago. And as a result of that, I received a huge download of spiritual information and information about psychic attacks and how they work. And so I have a lot of those videos that are on YouTube, and my book and all of that other stuff are a reflection of the downloads that I've received. So let's jump in to our fascinating topic: negative OCD thought loops caused by psychic attack. And I'm going to clear my throat again. There we go. So Elaine, it's good to connect with you as well. Very good. And I'm making a mental note right now, you guys. No red pepper in any of my soup. Like, I made it ahead of time and I put all the spices in and it was really yummy. And like, but I swear now it just has clicked with me tonight. I'm like, oh, that must be what it is. Because there was a Facebook Live that I did for one of my paid programs, and I had just eaten Indian food during my dinner break, and then I came on and I was having like a whole breathing fit, like coughing, and my face was turning red. So thankfully it's not that bad this time. Excuse me. I'm just gonna say excuse me for all the future throat clearing for the rest of this video, okay? So let's talk about negative OCD thought loops. I am glancing at my notes here and there because I want to make sure I don't miss anything. First thing I want to talk about are what are they? Like, what am I talking about when I refer to negative OCD thought loops? So when you hear OCD, you might think, like I mean what you might think that I mean. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. I'm using that in sort of a slang way, not as an official diagnosis. Like if somebody is having something that's like repeating and repeating and repeating, or it's just like super repetitive, sometimes in our slang we'll say, you know, like that I'm totally OCD about how I arrange my kitchen utensils, or like whatever. Like, so it's not an official psychiatric diagnosis, but it's a slang term that we're using, right? So negative OCD thought loops. So thoughts that keep playing again and again and again in your head. Now we all have thought loops. We all have thought loops that are a normal part of our thinking. Well, maybe they're not normal. They're a part of some of our own unhealed aspects. So like if your mother, you know, gave you negative messages, or your father or somebody else when you were growing up, you might actually hear like a tape of their voice in your head, like you're not good enough and blah, or whatever it is that you're hearing. It's like a tape. It's like a thought loop that keeps going and going and going. That's an example of a thought loop. But what I'm talking about are negative thought loops that are actually caused by something other than you, other than your own mind, other than your own memories, your own imprinting from your upbringing. So these are thought loops that are coming from something else besides you, okay? So what are these thought loops? They are either beliefs, false limiting beliefs, like I'm not good enough, I'm ugly, I'm always going to be poor, I can never have good things, life is so depressing, life is hard. Whatever these beliefs are, just fill in the blank. Negative beliefs that are limiting you in your life. They can also be thought patterns, so not just one sentence, but like a whole theme about how you're not good enough, like a whole pattern of different sentences, different thoughts that fit that same theme. So we've got false limiting beliefs, thought patterns, and then also persistent emotions. So like this feeling of like depression and depressive thoughts going and going and going, like as a repeating loop in your head. Those would be persistent emotions. Now remember, what I'm talking about here in this video are the ones that are not coming from your own unhealed wounds, which we all have. We all have them. So I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about negative thought loops that are coming from an outside source. And so next, I'm going to talk about where they actually come from. Okay, but first I want to address some comments. Elaine says, I used to talk to spirits obsessive compulsively. Okay, so that's actually not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about receiving messages from them, and I think it'll make sense once I go through it. But yeah, that's actually a troublesome phenomenon if you're talking to spirits obsessively. Then one morning I woke up and found that God had healed the entire phenomenon. That's fantastic. I'm really glad to hear that. Corey, so good to see you. Corey's one of my colleagues. It's really good. She's like couple towns over from me that way. Very good to see you, Corey. Elaine says, and I became afraid of what the demons will say, and as soon as I'm afraid, they say it. Yeah, so I had a feeling, Elaine, that what I'm going to talk about tonight is going to make sense to you. Actually, I think this is going to make sense to a lot of you. Those of you who have experienced any sort of psychic attack and you're aware that you have, I think you're going to be able to relate to what it is that I'm going to share here. And Corey says, good to see you too. Jane says, please talk about how to differentiate between normal thought loops and those from psychic attack. That is a great question. Let me think about if I want to address that right now. Don't let me forget, Jane. I don't think I'm going to forget, but I want to go ahead and address where they come from first, where these outer thought loops come from. And then let me talk a little bit about, in fact, I'm going to make a little note, how to differentiate. Okay, that is a really good question. This is why it's so great that we have a Facebook Live instead of me just doing the video, because like sometimes I don't realize what questions you might have. So I really appreciate you guys asking. Okay, so we've gotten really clear that you have your own unhealed wounds. You have your own false limiting beliefs that come from your upbringing, past experiences, even in your adulthood. And for those of you who believe in past lives, you might even have some unhealed wounds from that sort of thing. So that's all stuff that's coming from you, okay? And I want to acknowledge that stuff needs healing too. But what we're talking about here are things that are coming from an outside source. And so where is this, where are these psychic attacks coming from? Where are these thought loops coming from? So if you haven't grabbed a pen and paper yet, it would be a really good idea to take notes, okay? So I talked about the false limiting beliefs, that I talked about that thought loops are false limiting beliefs, thought patterns, and persistent emotions. You might want to write that down. Where they come from. Number one, where these thought loops come from. They can come from an entity attachment, also called a spirit attachment. So this is when a ghost or some other type of entity, there are tons of types of entities that's beyond the scope of this particular Facebook Live, but you've got human spirits, people who used to be alive on the planet with physical bodies just like you and me, and then they've passed away, and then they haven't gone on into the light. And so human spirits, also called ghosts, they will attach to a person. And then there are many other kinds of spiritual beings besides human ghosts. There are demons, there are fairies, there are jinn, there are various different kinds of earth elementals. Well, there's different hierarchies of jinn. There's, I'm blanking on the rest, but there's there are really like thousands of different kinds of entities. And again, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. But suffice it to say that it is an intelligent being that's separate from you, that has attached via an energy cord. So it's like a little hose or a tube that's attached from it to you. And oftentimes it will attach an energy cord. If you're dealing with OCD thought loops, a lot of times it will attach an energy cord somewhere directly into the head where those thoughts are feeding directly into your brain. Okay. Now, similarly, there may not be actual energy cords, but it might be more of what I call a broadcast, where the entity is like right next to the person, but rather than the message being sent in via an energy cord, it's being broadcast as an energy toward the person. Okay. Imagine like if someone, I think everyone knows what telepathy is. It's like reading thoughts or sending thought messages, right? So imagine that an entity can send energy or send thought messages or send low vibrations that would cause a person to feel depressed or anxious. Okay. Marietta is saying, good evening, beautiful. Good evening to you, Marietta. Tell us where you're joining from. So that's one origin of the negative OCD thought loops, is from entity attachments or an entity broadcast. Okay, so it's coming from a spiritual being. Okay, so usually from one or more entity attachments or entities that are sending this energy. The entities, if it's a human spirit, it can be even a deceased loved one who perhaps was kind of troublesome in their lifetime, or it can be someone that you don't even know, or it's just some random dark entity like a hitchhiker that just decided to latch on. Because one thing that I'm going to remind everybody is that a lot of these entities, the reason why they would even do this in the first place is that they want to create a feedback loop, so to speak, where they're sending negative thought forms in, and then it stirs up your stuff that's already there, and then creates anger, fear, resentment, rage, all these negative energies that the entities then feed off of. So that's the why. Okay, so where they come from, we've talked about entity attachments or entity broadcast. That's number one on the list. Number two is a little bit broader, and these I call this broadcast from the dark forces. So some people end up being under attack not just by a single entity or a couple of lost souls or demonic entities or something like that, but some people end up being under attack by the entire fleet of dark forces. I haven't used the word fleet before, but that seems to make sense here. Like the entire fleet of dark forces in general might have that person on their radar. A lot of reasons why that would happen is because that person is a, quote, light worker who has an important mission on the planet. I guess that would be the best way to put it. They don't need to be somebody important or officially doing spiritual work or anything. They could be like a janitor or whatever. Doesn't matter. But that person might have a lot of light, and they might be very gifted spiritually, and they might be a person who has the capacity to bring a lot of light and healing onto our planet. And the dark forces do not want that. Okay, that goes against their agenda. Their agenda is to keep the human race in fear and totally numbed out on like TV and beer and video games and like totally unconscious all the time, right? So they can feed off of the energy. Whereas some of these who are light bringers on the planet, they are working against that agenda, whether they even realize it or not. Just their existence is a threat to the dark forces. So there are times when the dark forces in general will send a broadcast of negative OCD thought loops to one of those people, and they'll just keep blasting them. The word that I use is blast, because that's what it feels like. It feels like you're being just blasted by negative thought messages, and they're not coming from yourself. They're coming from, it's like if you were at a concert and they turn the loudspeaker on. Let's say there's like one speaker. You're not at a concert where the speakers are all around. There's one speaker, and it's like being that sound, that noise is being blasted at you, and it's all like really discordant frequencies, and it's all negative messages. And actually, last month's class was something about how the dark forces use your vulnerabilities against you. So I want to point out that with the first two that we've talked about, actually all of these that we're going to talk about here, the dark forces will usually choose whatever frequency or thought loop that you already struggle with. So if you already struggle with self-worth issues, or feeling unsafe in the world, or depression, or anxiety, or anger issues, or whatever, if you already have a little bit of that, then they will magnify that like times 100, times 1,000. So they will blast you with that, whether it's an entity attachment or a broadcast from the dark forces in general. And so Jane, your question, how to differentiate, it can be really difficult because a lot of times it's some of both. A lot of times a person is under psychic attack from external sources, but yet it's hard for them to identify that because they know about their own internal issue and they think that it's just theirs. But maybe what's theirs is only like 10% of what they're feeling, and everything's been magnified so much and intensified that they're feeling it way stronger than they would otherwise if they weren't under attack. And before I go into the third out of my list of 3 of where they come from, let me go through and answer some questions or look at our comments here. Elaine says, I can feel them under my skin. Is that a cord? Elaine, that can sometimes be an energy cord, but there's also something that's called an implant. And so it's an implant. There are physical implants, and then there are etheric implants, which are spiritual and can't be seen by the human eye except for by clairvoyance. So it could be one of those if you can feel it. Sometimes that would be an implant. And I definitely am going to talk about implants in a future class. I've been kind of thinking about those lately anyway. So, but it actually works very similarly to an energy cord. Marietta is joining us from Lonedale, Missouri in the house. Cool. Elaine is saying 5 out of 6 clairs here. Yep. And we've got people saying, yes, it does. Makes sense. Yes, totally. Okay, before we go on to number 3, I need a drink. At least I'm not coughing anymore, you guys. I just thought of that. Okay, so right now we've addressed what these negative OCD thought loops are. And we've talked about where they come from. We've talked about 2 of the aspects of where they come from. And then I'm going to talk about number 3 right now. where they come from. Now, this is something that I don't think I've talked about in any of my past videos. So for those of you who've been watching my videos before, this might be new information to you, or if you've been studying elsewhere around the interwebs, you may have heard of this. So number 3 about where these negative OCD thought loops come from is from technology. Okay, so I'm going to give you a big fancy word, and the fancy word is psychotronics. Psychotronics, psychotronics. You can look it up on the internet, and it is the use of technology to send negative energies. It can be actually sent to initiate illness in a person as well. So a chronic illness or an acute illness or a life-threatening illness. I think I have a past video on Facebook about how, not on Facebook, on YouTube, about how psychic attack can cause illness. And so you can watch more about it on there. Although I don't really talk about psychotronics, I'm talking more about entity attack, but it works the same way. So psychotronics can cause illness. They can also cause OCD, these OCD thought loops, these negative thought loops. And I'm going to read to you this definition that I found that I'm not very good at describing sciencey kinds of things. And so I found this. I think it describes it really well to help encapsulate what I'm talking about with psychotronics. So this is from Psychotronics by Lawrence Wilson, MD. Psychotronics, also called psi warfare, spelled PSI, psi warfare, is the use of electronic machines to send beams of energy or frequencies directly to people's brains and bodies through the air. This is the new stealth warfare. It is inexpensive and simple and often hard to detect and defeat. And that's from Psychotronics by Lawrence Wilson, MD. And I'm really glad that I found that because he describes it more succinctly and more clearly than I probably ever could. So thank you, Dr. Lawrence Wilson. Over the years in working with clients, I have had numerous people contact me and work with me who were not only under entity attack, but they were being blasted by psychotronic warfare as well. Now, there's a couple of categories of this. There's energy that can be sent through your cell phone, through your computer, through your phone, through your, any of your devices. There's energy that can be broadcast through it. And then there are actual devices that are specifically intended for psychotronic warfare. There's something that's called, I think I have this right, the Mouth of God technology. Believe it or not, I was listening to information about this on Gaia TV, GAIA. It's like this membership that you can sign up for. They've got yoga classes and all sorts of wellness classes and all sorts of stuff, seeking truth. And I think it was Mouth of God technology. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but let's go down this rabbit hole. They were talking about how it's actually like a little mini looking satellite, like a handheld satellite that someone could stand like across the street and point it at you and send this frequency toward you of, feelings of depression and despair or certain thoughts. Okay. Yeah. So when I was listening to that, and I wish I had the name of the program, but it was a couple years ago. When I saw that, I was like, oh my God, they're even talking about it on Gaia TV, which is like fairly mainstream. I mean, it's not totally mainstream, but it's fairly mainstream. And so, yeah, it's kind of weird stuff, but it really does happen. Now, please don't assume that every single TV or cell phone or whatever is like sending you messages, because then we're getting into like total paranoia. Okay. So let's not put like a blanket assumption onto anything, but I want you to know where these negative OCD thought loops via psychic attack can come from. They can come from an entity attachment or an entity broadcast. They can come from a broadcast in general from the dark forces. They can also come from technology, psychotronics. Okay. Now, why would the psychotronics thing happen? Now, okay, let me think here. I'm thinking about what I want to say about this, because I could go down like a whole conspiracy rabbit hole here, and I try to not do that here. But I do have some questions, like some question marks in my mind. I've watched enough stuff and listened to enough stuff and had enough clients contact me privately that have had particular issues that has caused me to wonder if there are, some dark aspects to some of our government or just some things that are happening behind the scenes where, for whatever reason, certain people are attacked or manipulated. I think that can be one connection with the psychotronic warfare, where like there's something being specifically pointed at you. And then when it comes to like computer devices and cell phones and all of that, I do think that that people who intend to psychically attack us, let's say there's someone who's jealous or someone who is really into spiritual warfare and they're like really out to get you, a person who's alive is really out to get you, they can connect with you via online computer, right? They can access you via your Facebook page and send energy through your computer. And that is a thing. Like I've experienced that and I know that. The other part about the psychotronic, like the mouth of God technology, I haven't had personal experience with that. And I try to pretty much limit what I talk about as like this is a fact to things that I've experienced firsthand. But now you know, FYI, about the mouth of God technology, the psychotronics, the question mark, the possibility that there could be some dark things going on behind the scenes in our cultures. But then what I have experienced firsthand are the connections, people being able to connect via internet, via computer, and be able to send energy. And so for this reason, I